So, welcome to another episode of Gully to Gully. Of course, only one thing to discuss: the Champions Trophy final being shared between India and New Zealand. New Zealand winning the Pakistan leg and India winning the UAE leg. So, the trophy, of course, being shared between the two countries.
It's true.
Oh, and now that all the troll fans have cancelled us and left, for all you serious people, congratulations to India. Well done on winning the Champions Trophy. By far the best team. All the excuses and everything, advantage of playing in one ground, all that to one side, but the pure dominance, given the fact they lost the toss in every single game and still won very comprehensively. Although on paper, some matches might have seemed a lot closer than they were, but I mean, India had it pretty much covered throughout. And I've got Moeen dressed in his full formal attire, maybe representing Pakistan at the podium for the presentation
Blue,
ceremony.
blue. Oh, yes, I was, and I clearly didn't get the invite for Dubai, but yes.
um, so I guess there's only one place to begin. A fantastic performance by India, and well, the big question is this the beginning of a new era of dominance?
I think we said it in 2024 when they won the World T20. I think, the T20 World Cup. For a long time, there was a monkey on the back, right? And they hadn't won a tournament since the Champions Trophy 2013, despite consistently having amongst the best teams, right? I mean, at one point, we were saying that this was one of the most underachieved teams in cricket history, right? I mean, you could say to some extent, there was a bit of underachievement by South Africa for a long time. I think when you think of underachievement, you think of the juggernaut that South Africa had outside ICC tournaments. And the other one was, to some extent, Pakistan of the 90s. These were the two examples that come to mind, and then India until 2024. But once the monkey was off the back, there was always a chance and always a risk that this would happen. That India's all-round dominance and all-round superiority when it comes to batting, bowling, the types of bowling, the types of batting, fielding, the balance in that team, the bench strength, the list, and obviously the money and all the infrastructure sitting behind it, not to mention the population. I mean, everything put together means one, and India are the Australia of this generation. And you would have always felt that if India had got their act together, whenever that was, and everyone used to keep saying it, the likes, of in Ganguly's era or before Dhoni came on, or even before Ganguly, that once India gets their act together, gets their domestic cricket back on track, gets their systems in place, and just start churning out the best, highest quality people in the team, they'll be impossible to beat. I mean, it's just unreal how much talent they have. And it's not just a numbers game. I don't want to just say, because India has the largest population, they're always going to win. Of course not, right? I mean, by that logic, Pakistan should always come second. They're nowhere near second. Probably second from the bottom on a good day. But it's also
And New
the.
Zealand should be nowhere near.
I mean, New Zealand should be in the associates, right? I mean, even less than that. So obviously, it's not just that. It's also having the infrastructure, having the passion, having to turn those talented cricketers into skill, and also having great leaders and role models. India has all of that and more, right? This victory is a testament to the Roko legacy, Rohit and Kohli, not just as players but also as leaders. Especially Rohit Sharma, it's phenomenal, right? So obviously, congratulations to India, and you have to say without a shadow of a doubt, clearly the best team of the tournament. You mentioned that they lost every toss. They also lost the best bowler in the world, right? Jasprit Bumrah.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says about, we have so many others. At least they had others to replace him in the spin department. Doesn't matter. The void left by a player like Bumrah is in many ways
Yeah.
unfillable. But yet they won, So it just goes to show how easy it would have been if he was there.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's been, you pretty much covered everything. How amazing, and how, I mean, also the discipline that they showed, even in the two chases, where they never really got the net on it to get go, too far ahead of them. There's this theory about, take the game deep and finish it off at the end, but they never really got it to even 6.5 and over. So, and they were always in control. Pandya hit with his two sixes in the semi-final, and then a couple of blows even in the final, just made it so easy. So just the whole professionalism of how they went about it in the tournament. Yeah, it was admirable, right? Um, but I think we do need to spare a thought for New Zealand once again, runners up. Um, I don't know. It's a weird one. If you look at it, if you look at this tournament from a commercial point of view, right? And there's talks about how the Champions Trophy is its place in the wider scheme of things, especially 50-over cricket, is questionable. Um, but from New Zealand's point of view, I think they've done. No one would be disappointed, right? Okay, this is what their fourth or fifth final loss. In terms of what their limit is, they've probably exceeded that expectation. So, I yes, and they were just outplayed by a much better side. So it is another New Zealand defeat in an ICC, at least white ball final, but I don't think they can complain too much because they were clearly they were clearly in second place.
I'm not
Um,
sure about that. I mean, yes, they're definitely second, but I don't think they were by much had Matt Henry played. Now, they were definitely far and away second place if Bumrah were also in the team. But without
yeah,
Bumrah, but if Matt Henry played, it could have been closer. Having said that, if you ask me where did New Zealand lose the game, they were 30 runs short,
yeah,
right? It's when you are so close to winning with the ball, you can't help but think that
yeah,
and your bowlers gave a great gave you a great run for their money. They got the game as close as they could, but ultimately you were 20-30 runs short. So you definitely do blame batting. Daryl Mitchell taking a leaf out of Rizwan and Saud Shakil's book. I mean, but they did, and but you can't help but think that if Matt Henry played, could it have been a repeat of 2019? Where New Zealand were defending a subpar score and Matt Henry wreaked havoc. Now, lightning may not strike twice, but it makes you wonder. I do feel bad for New Zealand. I had always been New Zealand as the team the team to beat, other than India. Right? You had commentators like Ian Smith saying, "Oh yeah, I bet that trophy will look so good on the trip back home to New Zealand." He was saying it on commentary in the game against Pakistan, and that's what Pakistan do. They make all teams against us look so good. But in fairness, India had chinks in their armor, right? And there were moments, even in the final, there were moments when you thought there was a bit of rash stroke play. There was something that at the time didn't make sense. But the thing is, India bats so deep and they have so much confidence, not just in the top three. That's what people get wrong. People think, oh, India's top three dominant side. Not anymore. Maybe in 2017 they might have been when it was Rohit, Shikhar Dhawan, and Kohli, and there was a bit of a gap. I think can't remember who they had for. At four, Yuvraj, well past his prime, and then later Vijay Shankar, whoever he was. But there was a gap, 2017-19. But now, no way. Like Shreyas Iyer at four, Rahul at five, Axar Patel at five, Rahul at six, Pandya seven, Jadeja at eight. All of them, as soon as they got in, they immediately got off the mark. Right?
yeah,
They immediately, kept the scoreboard ticking. They have so much trust in everyone's ability with the bat, which actually, in hindsight, means that they were never ever going to remove the intent, even if it was less than run a ball. They were never ever going to get rid of it, and maybe that's the way they want to play.
yeah,
Um, and in fairness, I think the fact that they won close games is just testament to how mentally strong they are. If all games were one-sided, I would have come here and sat to you and said clearly home advantage India because they played all their games at home. Sorry, in the same conditions, which, as it happened, were well suited to their strengths. But in all games, they had to fight for their wins. Every barring maybe one, and I'm take a guess which one that is, but in all of them, they were given some sort of a scare, either when they're chasing or in the game against New Zealand in the group stage when they were defending a total and New Zealand were absolutely coasting. And India were all thinking, oh, what if Bumrah was here? What if Bumrah were here? But everyone but the players, you know. And when you have such close games and you come out on top, then the pitch, the conditions are taken out of the equation. The team that has the ability to absorb pressure better wins in that case. And in that case, it has little to do with anything else. So, um, look, I think India were just, yes, too good on the day, definitely. But I think the gap between the two teams was less than it ended up being. I think New Zealand let the weight of the occasion get to them batting first. I honestly think that's it. And sometimes that's because when you're def- setting up a total against India, who bat down to 8, you always trick yourself into thinking you need more. And in
Yeah.
that pursuit for more, you end up in no man's land.
Yeah.
Do I think Rachin and all them were a bit too rash? No, I think you're right to go after the bowling in the first 10 overs because then it gets tough to bat on. But I did think after you had got off to such a good start and you had to change gears a little, Rachin could have perhaps changed that gear and started to build his innings. And, you know, again, I think they thought they needed 300. I genuinely think they thought they needed 300.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think it's, look, you can't blame them in a way because they had that, they had a very good start, right? The first 5 overs or 6 overs, they had like 50 for nothing. Um, and sometimes because of that start, you just kind of get carried away and you're like, okay, I need to keep going at that rate.
Very right, yeah.
Although to be fair to them, I don't think any of them really got out playing rash shots. They were just trying to get a single or trying to nudge it around and just missed a good delivery. So there is a bit of that. But also you have to give credit to the captain, right, Rohit Sharma. He brought in the spinners at the right time. Did not panic when Rachin started going after the bowling, because at the end of the day, his backup plan was to go to a spinner in the power play, which certain teams are very reluctant to do. But he went for it, and Varun gave him a wicket in his second over, and then Kuldeep obviously a couple of overs later, and then that was that pretty much. So I think, yeah, brave captaincy. The only point I would make about conditions again, and I don't need to belabor the point, and of course Bumrah was missing, and yes, I'm sure they would have probably won it a lot easier if he was playing, because he probably would have. I don't know what balance they would have gone with, but if there were any conditions that you could have done without Bumrah, were probably these, because then you could afford to play 4 spinners, right? And that ended up working in their favor in any case. So, but then Shami gave like 70 odd runs in his
Yeah,
8 overs,
so
so maybe that wouldn't have happened. So, yeah,
so in my view, I think it would have been Bumrah for Shami,
yeah,
clear. So I think that's what would have happened. Look, captaincy, excellent. Rohit Sharma always gives the impression that he's getting stressed, and he keeps nodding his head even though they're firmly in command, but they just have one bad over and they're like, But actually, he's very shrewd. His decision making is top notch. Now, the one thing I will say is when you've got 4 high quality spinners, it's really easy to be a good captain. You've got limitless options. Whichever one you go with, you're going to have some sort of success. So, but having said that, I think the guts to go with your spinners earlier on paid off. Everyone criticized having 4 spinners, and the proof's in front of you, right? When they're going to play now, yes, I know they're playing in Dubai, but I guarantee you, even if they were playing in Pakistan, where there was no assistance at all to fast bowlers, they would have played these same spinners because they were ultimately the best bowlers in their squad, period. Now, um, the one point I will make, speaking of captaincy, and I think we should address this, is the toss. New Zealand won the toss, and I was surprised by their decision to bat first. I really, really am surprised by it. I think they were spooked by what they did in the group game where they chased and they collapsed. And I've been very sort of candid in that you should always pretend to yourself, even for a minute, that it's not a final. it's not a knockout game. And think to yourself, if it weren't, what would I do? And if your decision, when you bring the final aspect into the equation, is any different, that means you're letting the pressure of the final get to you. Without the final, I guarantee you, New Zealand, looking at how India aced the chase against Australia, have aced all their chases, and knowing well that they were in a commanding position for most of that game when they were when they were chasing, would have chased. But they just let the event get to the better of them. Runs on the board. They collapsed last time against India. And I just think it was a bad decision. You had the in front of you, Ahmedabad in 23 wasn't that dissimilar a wicket. But there, Pat Cummins won the toss, bowled first, knowing full well that after the first 10 overs, it's going to get tough to bat on if you're batting first, and potentially may get a bit easy under lights. Same thing happened here. And I was a bit surprised at that decision, to be really honest with you. A part of me also thinks that it's also driven by Matt Henry not playing. So they were scared that if they wanted to get their batters in the game, because that was their strength, they wanted to get their batters in the game early, because if they didn't, and the bowlers, sort of bowled first, then India could easily rack up 320, 330, and then effectively you've lost the game before your strongest suit even gets a chance to prove themselves. The psychological pressure.
And also, they scored 360 or different conditions, but they scored 360 in the semi-final, right? So batting first. So maybe that would have weighed on them, that maybe if they get a good start, they can get to 300, 320 and then kind of get into that position, which for the first 5 overs was looking good. But yeah, I mean, either way, I think it would have been a tough one if India had batted first and gotten off to a fast start and gotten to 300, then they would have collapsed. And again, maybe that the fear that exposing themselves to the Indian spinners on a pitch which is 50 plus overs old would have been a challenge as well. So
yeah,
I can understand the thinking, but and plus there was no due or anything, right? So
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think New Zealand were a bit rigid in their batting order? When they had lost their 4th wicket, do you think they could have just delayed bringing Glenn Phillips in?
I did think that, to be honest. I did think that they could have, but then because Bracewell at the end is also kind of a aggressive hitter, so there's who else would have sent? Maybe Santner to bat through a little bit. But I do agree that maybe Phillips was either the left right or and get Phillips in. Yeah, I think exposing him a bit too early. Potentially.
I also think and you've got 2 left-arm spinners in India's side. If I am in India's dressing room, and this is what New Zealand should have thought, if I am in India's dressing room, I'm like, what is something that the opposition could do that could challenge us and throw us off guard? And what I think is encouraging left-right combinations, because that's always tricky when you've got a left-arm orthodox spinner or even a Chinaman. But in fact, they've got 3 left-arm spinners. I'm not counting Kuldeep. It's mainly Aksa and Jadeja. So that it just throws them a little off guard, throws them a little off their mark if you had that, and especially if it's unexpected. India did that a lot with Aksa Patel until now it's become expectation, but initially it was supposed to be done as a to just mix things up a little. Santner is a good enough player in my view, right? When they lost Latham, I think, and that was a big wicket. People talk about Williamson, but Latham, in my view, is New Zealand's best player spin. He's excellent. Why? Because he plays the sweep shot and the reverse sweep very well, and so does Daryl Mitchell. But when Latham got out, a lefty needed to come to replace another lefty, in my view. And Santner, I know you're short of options. I would have gone Santner because I think he's someone who can rotate strike. Maybe not as good as Aksar is, but it would have given Rohit Sharma something to think about, in my view. I think that's hindsight's a wonderful thing. Would it have changed the result? I'm not sure. But it's just little things that Santner will have to learn. I also thought when he was defending and he India needed less than run a ball, and they just got, I think, Axar's wicket, and you're like, oh, is there a slight sniff, maybe a bit too late, but and then you're giving India easy singles when the only way you can win then is just taking 10 wickets. And I just felt he should have brought the fielders in a lot more than he ended up doing. He gave them easy singles on the onside, which is why a lot of the new batters easily got off strike as soon as they got in. That was another one that a bit, again, it wouldn't have changed the result in my view, but little things that could have been done a little better.
Yeah, it could have, but then again, yeah, in hindsight, you never know. And because how well, even although in terms of quantum of runs, it wasn't too many for the other batters, but everybody did something right. Iyer, Akshay Patel got 30 odd, Pandya, KL Rahul, Jadeja at the end, except Kohli, of course, but everybody did, and probably the bare minimum in terms of what was expected of them, 20s and 30s, and then obviously Sharma did what he did, and that's enough when you're chasing a middling total like 250, right? And they did it all in pretty decent time. I think Akshay took a bit of time to get going, but then he was pretty decent. KL Rahul, I think, phenomenal, even in the semi-final and the final. Pandya doing his thing. So I think it's just everybody doing their little bits. Whether it's in ones and twos, or even if they did soak up a couple of dot deliveries, it's just covering it up by hitting a 6 or a 4, which is all you need when the run rate isn't out of hand. I think they did that perfectly well. So yes, could Saturn have done something different? Maybe, but to be honest, having seen how the game played out, I'm not really sure. If the result would have been in any different. It's one of those where, like I said, I think India were never like behind in the game, right? They were always even that win-wish thing. Although that win predictor thing, I think it's pretty crazy at times. But even that was, I don't think it ever went above 25% for New Zealand, which I think was fair.
You're right. I mean, the other one I thought it was Jameson not being asked to come on to bowl, and
maybe that one. Yeah,
you had Will O'Rourke and you had all these new guys, bowling a little more when Jameson had only bowled 4 overs, and when he came and he got Pandya's wicket, it was too little, too late. I don't know, but look, you're right. I don't think it would have made much of a difference. Jameson wasn't even very, very threatening to begin with, anyway. So definitely agree. But let's now talk about India, right? I mean, there is so much to say. Firstly, I think I want to just say one of the things that is a hallmark of a world-beating dominant side is the ability of players to evolve. Look at Varun Chakravarti. Where was he in 21 and where is he now? I mean, the guy has literally reinvented himself with the ball. We talked about Kuldeep before, so we won't talk about him today. Although he was brilliant, let's be honest, he was brilliant. I completely dismissed him. He was brilliant. But then I'm just talking about the batting as well, right? I mean, look at KL Rahul. Here was a guy who everyone said was a bit overrated. They tried him in the opener's position in T20 cricket. He was a bit hit or miss. People weren't sure whether he merited a place in the side ahead of Pant, now that Pant was back. But I think KL Rahul has made that number 5, number 6 position his own. He did it against Australia in that ODI World Cup. Remember when India started at 1 for 3 or something? Chasing, albeit not a big score. But KL Rahul's ability to absorb pressure and his shot selection and decision making, his judgment basically, when under pressure, is amazing. You can almost be forgiven if you made a bad shot selection under pressure, because that's what pressure does to you sometimes. But once in a blue moon, it can happen. But KL Rahul just maintains his composure wonderfully. And I think he had a point to prove. He could not finish the game in the final, right? Many people chastised him for his innings, although India were batting first, but still. But I think he's really had a point to prove for himself, right? That he can win games consistently for India. He can bat according to the situation, and he's shown that, right? Axar Patel is the other one, who's from where to where, like the guy who can barely hold a bat and was only sent in only if there was just a need for a right-left-hand combination, but was always considered to be a bonus, like a bonus wicket, a bonus success, even though he's done quite well in first class. But now he's like a proper formidable batter. And at number 8, you've got somebody who's got, I think, I think Jadeja has 2 triple centuries in first class cricket. Did you know that? And he bats at 8. For God's sake. But that just shows the depth.
versus some other number 8 all rounders in the
Yeah,
world of
yeah,
cricket.
yeah, yeah. Who take reviews because they just think that they're so precious. I mean, really, is something else. It's too.
Just on KL Rahul quickly as well, right? I mean, I, again drawing parallels to certain teams, but here's a guy who's opened, batted 4, batted 5, now batted 6, and he's done all these roles without complaining. He's done well in all of them, excelled. He was a couple of months ago. He was opening in a test match in Australia, right? So, and now he's batting at number 6 behind Akshay Patel, who, I mean, someone with certain egos would be like, oh, how can you Akshay Patel be batting ahead of me? But he's come in and he's performed rather than finding excuses to fail and be like, oh, they keep changing my number and that's why I'm not performing and I'm not settled, blah blah blah, whatever. He has a defined role and he does it really really well and just gets on with it. Although he did say certain things at the ceremony, I think one of the post match interviews, that he was bleeping himself, but he was batting towards the end. But
And when you watch on Sky, they have a sign that we apologize for the use of profane language. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right.
So
Absolutely. KL Rahul, that's a very interesting observation, Zayed, because on one hand, you say that, and we have lamented that one of Pakistan's, the reason for one of the reasons for Pakistan's downfall is inability to formalize roles and stick with those roles for players. But I guess, look, it's important to have roles, but I think there's a difference between roles and between positions. I think KL Rahul, while they floated his position around, just let's not confuse formats, okay? I completely agree with formats. In different formats, you can have different roles. But in the same format, I think in ODIs, yes, they pushed him up and down the order, but his role was simple. He's a bit like what we'd want Kamran Ghulam to be. Someone who can bat deep if needed, but someone who can score quick and just be a finisher as well. So even if he batted, say, at number 4, I think that role still is valid, right? He's not a basher at the top of the order or somebody who rotates strike or an anchor or whatever. His role is very simple. Support the anchor and batting deep or go after the bowling. And he's got the game for it. And I guess it helps when you have such a high quality batting unit around you that you will naturally evolve into whatever position, into whatever role brilliantly. But the point you said on ego is a very valid one. And I applaud KL Rahul for that. In fact, you can see it whenever they ask him for a review. He's always so neutral and so pragmatic, despite the occasion getting the better of them, a bowler howling that, I know, I really want this, I really want this. I think KSN was a bit too high. And Rahul kept saying, I think it's high. It says something about the culture in that unit, I have to say. Look, and I don't think enough can be said of Hardik Pandya. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of him as a person. But sometimes you have to say that, if you're that good and that consistent at delivering when it matters, I guess you have the right to be arrogant. I don't know how to say it. It's just.
I mean, he is the definition of clutch, right? He comes good. I mean, that innings, although it was not a lot of runs, but that innings in the semi-final, like the calm, controlled innings, when the run rate was slightly getting ahead, he just went bang bang, 2 6s, game
Against
over, right?
Australia's best bowler.
Yeah. Albeit in a weekend attack, but anyways, but it was just that, and that just a belief and confidence, right? That if I hit it, it's going to go for 6. And also again, similarly to you talk about roles, right? Pandya for a long time, and I think up till last year, early even before the Champions Trophy, you would have said he's a batting all rounder. He's usually batting 5, 6, That's been his position. I think he's batted higher in T20s maybe, and then probably
Agreed.
six. But in this tournament, he was batting at seven, and he had a very defined role as a finisher, so to speak. And then, okay, apart from the final where he did get tonked around a little bit with the ball, but his main role was to be, that second seamer, right? Which we've always said that he's probably not is not a role that he's suited for. But he did it very, very well. He came in, he got crucial wickets whenever needed. Again, and then I think as a bowler, he knows his limitations. So he knows how to use the conditions. He's very good with that short bouncer. And again, you talk about evolution, right? So yes, his batting has always been phenomenal, but I think his bowling has evolved not in terms of like speed and things like that, but it's the variations and understanding the game and maturing as a bowler, which is again really good to see. And again, some other all rounders again, people would have just taken the excuse and be like, "Oh, I'm batting at number seven, and this is not my role. I'm a batting all rounder, not a bowling all rounder." But he's taken on that role really, really well. But yeah, I
Do,
mean, the swag and everything else comes with it.
do you remember in 2023 World Cup, before it started, you and I both picked the same man of the tournament in our predictions,
Yeah,
and it was Hardik Pandya. Eventually, he got injured. I still think he would have had a massive role in that tournament because it's a long tournament where all rounders come at a premium. Unfortunately, he got injured, but I still think we could have seen the absolute best of him then. I just think this is too short a tournament, and India are, I think, a stronger side now, with or without Bumrah, because I'm talking about the batting lineup, than they were in 2023. Because Axar Patel has really made the ODI
yeah,
format his own too. I think that was the missing link where they felt they only batted till seven, and then they had Shardul Thakur who had to come in, even though he wasn't the best with the ball, but just because he gave some batting depth at number eight, which is why Shami missed out for a while. And then you also had the issue of them trying Surya Kumar Yadav, who just didn't excel in ODI cricket. So this is a much stronger side than it was then, and I think
yeah.
like Pandya would be a shoe in much higher up if it were any other batting side. So
Yeah,
look, fully
and
agree.
the the flexibility, right? I mean, if they were playing in any other occasion now, Australia, South Africa, I think the only change they would make is probably, rather unfortunately, drop one of Kuldeep or Varun and play a seamer, right? And you've got the same
But
balance. You've got three seamers or two, and three spinners pretty much. So I think from a balance, and they still have that batting down till number eight. So I mean, for that, and they've got some very good like for like replacement in Washington, so they're waiting in the wings to come in if anything happens to Jadeja or Axar if they get injured. So I think that it's just that balance and understanding of roles. And you mentioned Akshar Patel, and I think this is the one thing which Mr. Gautam Gambhir will take credit for all his life. I think now that master stroke of moving Akshar Patel to number five, like you mentioned, which had been previously flirted with at times, but now kind of was the expected role from him. And to be honest, I was very skeptical, and I was waiting, not waiting, but maybe waiting at times throughout the tournament that this strategy will fail and be exposed. But he always stood up, whether it was in that group game against New Zealand or in the semi final. They just needed him to score those 30-40 runs, and he did that perfectly well every time. So yeah, I mean, credit to him.
yeah, although I think the way he got out was silly, but again, he learned from that.
Yeah.
Um, I would say just a caveat to our fans that we're talking about the ODI format. We're well aware that Rahul Dravid championed the cause for Axar Patel in T20s, but I think we were skeptical about Axar Patel batting at five in ODI cricket, right? Because it is a different beast altogether. But he did it really well, and that's a testament how he evolved his game. But I will say one thing that I've noticed about India. They have entrusted their youngsters, and even this great team when they were young, to step up in pressure situations early on, and MS Dhoni must get credit for it. Hardik Pandya, do you remember the 2016 T20 World Cup when he was just a kid? And MS Dhoni trusted Hardik Pandya with the last over in that game against Bangladesh, which India were
Yep.
destined to lose until Bangladesh absolutely bottled it. But you know, Now, it could have easily gone all wrong for India in that game, right? It could have all gone Hardik Pandya, youngster, and then if it didn't work out, everybody like, oh, what a terrible decision by MS Dhoni. Like, why wouldn't he just go with his tried and tested bowlers and just change the order out? Why give a youngster the last over? Reminds me of even Joginder Sharma against Pakistan in 2007. But look, hindsight, a great captain is one who does not make decisions based on how foolish they could look if they don't work out. That is a hallmark of a scared captain. A captain who's insecure and unsure of his place, right? And that usually happens when the setup is uncertain, i.e., high. But in India, Dhoni knew full well that look, he is going to go with his gut. He is, if nothing else, and it doesn't work, it'll still be a good decision because you've at least helped groom a player into dealing with pressure situations. So he'll be stronger for the experience, even if he doesn't close it out on that particular occasion. That's the view Dhoni always took. And he always used to ask the players. I remember with Jukinder and Harbhajan, just for all who don't, MS Dhoni had 1 over left for each of them. He actually asked both players. And Joginder Sharma just felt a little more confident. He just said, Captain, I feel like I've got it. And Harbhajan was like, oh, and Harbhajan, even though he was more experienced, everybody was saying, oh, it should be Harbhajan, even though he's a spinner, but way more experienced and has bowled in the death. But Harbhajan was a bit unsure. He got smacked in the previous, oh, I'm not sure. And Dhoni's like, fine, that's clear to me then. I'm going to go with someone who is more confident because if he's done so well to make it to India's starting 11, then he has the goods. And if he's confident enough, I need to back him. Because if I don't back him, it'll impact him. As it happens, Joginder Sharma didn't have a long career in cricket. But I thought that was a great testament to a captain going by the vibes he got from his players. And it's a very tough decision in any case. Same with Pandya. Pandya said, give me the ball. I'm confident with the last over. Trust me. And I cannot stress enough the importance of Dhoni in this juggernaut that is Indian cricket. The seeds of believing in these youngsters that will one day grow into world beaters as they have now and entrusting them early on in their careers.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I guess this is probably a good way to move on to the wider context. And we touched on this in the beginning of how India is evolving into the superpower of in cricket. And I guess it is that consistency of whether it is captaincy or passing on the baton and keeping that winning, not winning, but like that strategy or the way you play, style of playing, template evolving, all of those things, they've done it so well. Whether it's even, like you mentioned, how Dhoni gets credit for this team, but then the next crop that's coming in is going to evolve under the current crop, and you don't see a decline. And you pretty much for every batter out there or every bowler, there is 2 or 3 pretty good or excellent replacements, right? Barring maybe Bumrah, but like like you said, you didn't really need him anyway. Yeah. But on a wider scale, I mean, you mentioned in the beginning, we mentioned it, that they probably are the Australia of the 2000s, but I actually think they're probably bigger just because of the whole commercial aspect of it. Australia were the number one cricketing team, yes, on the field. But because cricket is probably not the number one sport in Australia, so it's never been like Australia are a superpower off the field as well. But India, with their all their commercial might and all that comes with it, and now the fact that they're a bloody good team, winning trophies, I just don't see that stopping anywhere. And that's just how it's evolving. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. It's just how it is. To the extent that you've got a very neutral ICC chairman coming in and celebrating India's win, I think that's quite phenomenal.
You're right. You're very right that it's so difficult to dislodge a team like India when they've got all that backing them in a way that Australian cricket didn't have back in the day. I completely agree with that. If anything, that goes to show how great that Australian team was to have achieve all that success in spite of Australia not being the best sport. So you can you can almost swing the narrative the other way. But I do agree with you that I think we're set for dominance, right? The only difference I'd say between now and them is the fact that we have three formats, and with all and more cricket that's played internationally and across franchise leagues, which means it's very tough for a team to always feel their top choice 11. Now, I know you said, and I agree with you, that India's bench strength is so vast that even their BOC team will give other teams, A teams, a run for their money, much to Jason Gillespie's dismay. I agree with Sreen Gavaskar, but I still think that, you know, a team does become a bit beatable when you chop and change a little more. We will never go back to a time of the 90s, which is your favorite time and my favorite time. A time when, yes, cricket wasn't that frequent, but whenever it was, it used to be classic, good old international, either bilateral cricket or tri-series cricket. And it was the anticipation and all that. And you always had a full strength team, right? Always had, like, every tour was given its full strength no matter where. Today, with franchise leagues and the money involved in that, you're never going to get that. So I do think India's dominance will still be there, but I encourage everyone to not look at the numbers and say, oh, look, but Australia's numbers were better. Obviously, they'll be better. It's a different time for the reasons I just stated. India's dominance will, as you say, far exceed the cricketing field. And I will say, I think that's a great segue to a point that I wanted to make, which is, yes, I was disappointed in not seeing Pakistan represented in the final of a trophy that they supposedly hosted. But equally, I think there was also partly to do with Pakistan's decision. I don't think Shehbaz Sharif, our Prime Minister, thought it would be a great PR look to be handing a trophy to India, even though I think maybe it wouldn't have been a bad idea.
I mean, don't have if that was an issue. I don't think it should have been. I think it would have been, in a way, would have shown you as, you know, someone
great,
so to
bigger
speak,
than
a
that.
bigger
I
person.
agree.
Yeah, but just be there on stage and let Jesha do it because as the ICC chairman or whatever, right? But anyways,
But I do think, you know, man, I'm disappointed in the Pakistan Cricket Board. When I looked at their Instagram and Facebook pages, there was no mention of the final, no mention of India winning. And look, I'm not here to talk politics. I'm not here to say Pakistan or India, whatever. It's a moot point now. The point is, cricket should always win. And if that is the argument you have said time and again, you should have shown that in your actions. Congratulations, India. Are easily the best team in the tournament. They played thrilling cricket in every tournament that you hosted. I know it was a bit sour that those games were in Dubai. I get that. But I think Pakistan could have been the bigger person there. A bit disappointing. Instead, if you actually go on their Facebook, they posted about Muhammad Abbas's birthday 5 times. So the intern who accidentally posted the same thing 5 times in a space of 2 minutes clearly isn't getting a return offer at the PCB. And judging by PCB's record of giving return offers and return opportunities to everyone who's tried and tested, that's quite a failing. But yes, like if you look at it, it's absolutely laughable.
yeah.
Muhammad Abbas gets five birthday mentions, 5, because someone just accidentally pressed the button too many times.
I don't know if you've seen if you've seen Mohsin Naqvi's tweet, and this is very deliberate, right? And very naughty in a way, and it's sad as well. He specifically mentioned like welcome all the teams that visited Pakistan and came to Pakistan for the Champions Trophy and very grateful and thankful, something like that. But he specifically mentions like all the teams that visited Pakistan for the Champions Trophy.
Can I ask you a question, Zahid? Is he also thanking the West Indies team? Because the West Indies captain was plastered over all our billboards in Pakistan. If you look at the billboards, it has all the captains and it has a West Indian batter.
Another intern maybe.
Hitting a sweet shot. And we're like, do they not know who's even playing this tournament?
Maybe that intern's not getting a return offer as well. Huh?
Yeah, I know. But anyways, again, that intern there. But and then did you see what they posted after that? They're like, throwback to Kushtil Shah's exceptional knock of 40 runs of 26 balls against Zimbabwe in 2020. What a great innings. And you're like, you've just hosted a Champions Trophy, and you decide to remind everyone of a game against Zimbabwe in 2020. Like, come on, like seriously. But anyways, I'm digressing. But oh dear.
Yeah. Look, yeah, I don't know. It could have been done better. Maybe who knows? Next year, well, we'll never know because Pakistan will get nowhere near the knockout stages in the T20 World Cup next year. So, um,
No chance. No
but
chance.
yeah. But if there
To
ever
the
was a
point
chance to,
that
yeah,
nobody even, people say, oh, but Pakistan's always a tournament side. They're always a tournament
yeah,
team. Nobody says that anymore. Because you're like, well,
yeah,
actually, they can be threatening for like 1.5 games. And then I think now it's like, if you look at the stats speak for themselves. Everybody remembers the great comebacks because they're so special and exceptional. But if you actually look at the numbers, I mean, look at the number of times Pakistan has failed to have Kudrat Khan Nizam fall in their laps. Like, it's so
yeah.
common now to see Pakistan just, timidly walk away. So, yeah, I mean, nobody even talks about it. To anyone who still laments about India's home advantage, I'll say one thing. Was it an advantage? Maybe slightly. But if India won their games single handedly, I would have said that's a valid point. But the fact that India had to work hard to win their games shows that they're the better team, not just in terms of skill, but also in their ability to handle the pressure moments. And that's what makes you a champion team.
And I mean,
That's
they were the heavy favorites going in as well, right? It's not that they were not the favorites and stuff, before the tournament started.
Yeah, and it's not
Um,
like you're playing in
yeah,
on New Zealand type wickets in Pakistan, right? I mean, let's
yeah,
just cut call spade a spade. We're subcontinent tracks, regardless, right?
yeah.
So, and having said that, I mean, if you actually look at the 2023 World Cup, India's travel miles were far more than anyone else's. Pakistan's were the least. Now, I know that's not the same as saying that. That's not the same as staying in one place and playing all your games. But again, I will stand to what I said. The champion team was India. Like, no question, all bases covered. They would have won, I think, on nearly every ground in the world.
Pretty fair and probably a good way to conclude the episode. The team that would have won in every ground in the world.
Yeah, I mean, there's no better way to end it, huh? Like, and then whilst on our side, we'll have our selectors who is one former umpire, the other's a data analyst. I'm struggling to see. I actually want to know. I want Hassan Chima to tell me the data that supported Fahim Ashraf getting in the team. Where is this data? This data analyst as a selector really, really just gives me the pit.
I think I'm just going to say it now. I think we're about 50 minutes in the episode or something. I think no one's going to see this anyway, so I don't think I'm going to get cancelled. But it's not the data, it's the database of what political connections you have that gets you in the team.
Oh, and he said it. He said it. It is Fahim Ashraf, and he has said it.
I
Rana
mean,
Fahim
Haris
Ashraf.
Rauf, like, I think a couple of days ago, he's posing with a car that's got a certain political party's like name on its number
It is
plate.
crazy. I mean, it is. I haven't even once seen Kohli or Rohit Sharma with the BJP or the Indian National Congress. Like, it is insane. You don't
I mean,
do
no, I think
that.
Jadeja has been pretty active. I think his wife's like an MP or something. But anyways, yeah.
Fair enough. But I'm saying, I don't think, this doesn't happen. It doesn't happen so obviously. Like, I for all I know, Tayyip Tahir, probably there's the Lahore Kalandar connection with Akif Javed. Again, where's the data supporting his inclusion? So, anyways, whilst we have our own clown and mimicry, look, it's great to see that actually the best team won. And it's a testament to India's great fortitude that they put the devastation of 2023, where lots of other teams would have just not been able to recover, behind them. And look, I think the legacy for Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli is as unprecedented as it's ever been. If there were ever any questions about the passing of the torch and how good or how successful they've been in grooming their successors, now you have your answer in front of you. Shreyas Iyer, who we haven't spoken about, by the way, in my closing note, I'll just say one thing. Here is a player who only plays one format, Sahid, only one format. And yet he plays with such dedication. He plays as if there's no tomorrow. He knows his role and he plays such fearless cricket. And when you play at number 4, knowing that the quality of your batting reduces slightly after you and the pressure that that brings with it, against that backdrop, the confidence with which he plays is unprecedented. And never once has he complained that he's only in one format and he should either be in T20s also or in tests or all three of them. Never. If ever there was someone who questioned the importance of professionalism, here is a team that got their act together and the results are coming through. And how? Congratulations to India. New Zealand, they'll have to fight another day. But
can I just finish off on one final
no,
note? I think again, from a commercial point of view, and how this actually tournament for whatever it is, I think everybody can walk away being happy. India, of course, winning it. New Zealand getting to the final and doing whatever they do. All the YouTubers in Pakistan and the 90s legends, as they're called, getting their chance to shine and live off their past glories or glory. So everybody wins, in a certain way. England finishing last, so everyone can have a go at them, and all. Afghanistan having a good tournament, not qualifying, but still, with a moral victory, so to speak. So at the end of it, I think everybody is a winner in certain ways. Maybe not Pakistan's cricket team, but definitely the meme pages in Pakistan.
well, for Pakistan cricket team, there's just learning. Remember. And on that note, thank you, Zai. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.